three shares that has driven the JSE over the last year or so until the recent wobble has been Naspers. The company has been an extraordinary story. It's a darling of the JSE. Earlier on today, I caught up with the CEO. His name is Koos Becker, on the occasion of that company's year-end results, which were released earlier today. Here's that chat.
Our business tended to develop in phases. In the 80s, we started with pay TV, and we were together with a French company, the first in the world outside the US. So you invest for a few years, make losses, and then it starts delivering profits, hopefully, if it works. Then we had cellular telephony with MTN, then later the internet, things like Tencent and Mail.ru. And then from about 2008, we went for e-commerce. And we're now building it. So this is a gentle warning that these things take money, and they cause initially losses. So what you'll find is the top line growing nicely, I think, next year, but the bottom line, the profit line, being sort of flat or even somewhat down as a consequence of this development.
But the market likes that. The market has been critical of companies that have been bottom line companies rather than top line companies recently.
Sometimes. Now the market likes, both growth of the top line to indicate the engine rolls faster and profits. And sometimes you can have it, but mostly there's some sort of trade-off. For instance, if you spend more on research and development, employ more engineers to develop new products, they tend to cost you in year one. Our development has two sort of nuclear areas. The one is e-commerce, where we typically build a brand, or we build a computer system to drive Kalahari, or price check, a price comparison engine, go from PC to internet. So it's engineering that costs you money. That's one category. And the second is digital terrestrial television. So there you buy transmitters, basically hardware. So these are the two costs that will sort of depress us in the next year. But hopefully in future they'll deliver. To give you an example, if you sell a digital terrestrial subscriber in March of this year, you will incur all the costs of subsidizing his decoder, paying for the transmitter that serves him, running into marketing costs, and you'll have 1 month of income. But if you look at the same guy next year, you have zero cost, it's all born this year, and you have 12 months of income. So it's an asymmetrical situation that this year you take the pain, next year the gain. Now it's easy to get up the numbers for this year by just not incurring the pain, but then next year it doesn't grow. So
similar to a cell phone company giving you an instrument and charging you 349 Rand a month. The numbers, revenue up 27%, core headline earnings per share up 20%, dividend 15% better. And that core headline earnings per share number excluded that very nice trade you did with Facebook, 2.6 billion. But that's out the window now.
That's a little bit of luck. Our Russian company was invested in Facebook, and it's been selling off shares in phases. They still have a little bit left, but most of it's now sold. Accounting rules these days include so many funnies that many numbers mean really nothing. So we tried to distill it down to a sort of a number stripped of funnies, and that indicates sustainable performance over the next year. So if you take out all the once-offs or paper profits or whatever, what number would you get? And we define it as core headline earnings. And then if you reduce it to core headline earnings per share, you've probably got the purest number. So on that basis, we grew 20% year on year in terms of profitability. And if you analyze that, about half is the currency effect, the weakening rand.
It's gone from 8 to 10 over the last year. I think early July last year it was 8.10. It's been to 10.30. A meaningful influence on your results, obviously.
Yes. Lindsay, the rand has a very curious effect on us. In the short term, consider this: if we earn money from China or Poland, and that's in zloty or in renminbi, and it translates into rand, and the rand weakens, we actually get more rands. That's good. But in the long term, it's bad for us, because Mnet, for example, would buy a movie in dollars, and we can cover forward for 2 years, so we can stabilize the rand to the dollar 2 years forward. But after that, the rand will go from 8 to the dollar to 10 to the dollar, and we basically pay more for the same item, and we can't always pass this extra cost onto the subscriber, so sometimes we have to swallow it ourselves, and that then depresses your margins in the long term.
Okay, segmental now. Internet revenue up 80%. This is a huge number, 34.6 billion. Tencent, Mail.ru. Can you give us an overview?
Yeah, the internet's growing quickly, but it's a very competitive field. So you're either very good operationally or you get knocked out. So a lot of our emphasis is actually building systems, getting the best engineers, the brightest entrepreneurs, turning them loose. They're typically very young people, somewhere between 25 and 35. And they work immensely hard. And the competition is scorching. So if you succeed, you grow quickly, but we also have failures. You'll see every year we write down a few companies that we couldn't, couldn't sustain the battle. So you have successes and failures, and what you can hope for is that in the long or medium term, your failures are somewhat fewer than your successes.
Talking about scorching, revenue doubled in the e-commerce business. I mean,
yes.
When we spoke a year ago, you said e-commerce is the future, and of course now the internet and the e-commerce businesses usurped the pay TV revenues for the first time, and you predicted that, of course.
I think we're now mainly an internet company, and pay TV is becoming a bit of a sideshow. To give you an idea of e-commerce, the moment our group sells about 800,000 items a day. So every day, somewhere in the world, we sell 800,000 discrete items, or actually enable people to sell. We don't always own the item. We sometimes just create the marketplace where a third-party seller could sell an item, a bicycle, to a consumer. If you look at it slightly differently, the turnover is about 10 billion rand in e-commerce and is growing quite quickly. And we basically have three pillars. There are hundreds of things you can do in e-commerce. So the three pillars are basically classifieds, e-commerce, and payment systems. And all our energy is into that.